It's a big day, guys. It's a pretty big day. It is my new to me L322's first big journey. I think the longest I've driven her so far is about an hour, hour and a half. I'm about to do about a 4-hour trip up to Scotland. Now, not that I don't trust her, feel like I'm pretty well prepared for any situations, fingers crossed. I've got a breakdown cover, check. I've got my heavy duty jump pack, check. I've got a socket set with a few wrenches, spanners, etc. Check. I've got a tyre inflator. Check. And I've also got a few friends coming along for the journey, because we're going to go play some golf, sorry, who can tow me along because I've got a tow rope as well. So yeah, hopefully none of that is needed whatsoever. And I might be doing a bit of a disservice and even having to think about prepping that way. But I don't want to ruin the trip for everyone, so I have prepared for potentially the worst. I have faith in her though, so this video is me kind of using the time I've got along the way to tell you how it's been going with her. So yeah, let's have a chat about that. For any of you who've seen the channel previously, you'll know that I had a 2012 Range Rover Westminster, and I absolutely love that thing, but it was a completely different kettle of fish compared to this car. That was a lot more luxurious, had a better engine, and it was pretty much used as a daily. This to me is now a bit of a weekend toy, a bit of a, fun thing to tidy up, do a few mechanical bits to, and use for long journeys and trips like this. That is the whole reason I bought this. And so far, I'm absolutely loving it. I said it in the video that I did showing this car when I first bought it. I absolutely love the spec of this car. It isn't everyone's cup of tea, and a lot of people will probably be like, oh my God, that is the worst, why have you got that? But the green over tan alone makes this car perfect for me. I am genuinely in love with it. Given this car only cost £5,000, it's probably the car I've looked back most at in the car park. And that, for anyone, is such a good telltale sign as if you make the right decision on a car. If you've had a car and months afterwards, you still turn around, look at it in the car park, have a little wry smile, you have got a good car. And that's what I do with this. I've only done it with a few cars I've had, one of which was my Porsche Cayman, which to this day I am still madly in love with, and funnily enough I actually messaged the guy who bought it off me a few weeks ago asking if it was available again. He said no. But for me, this car is just, yeah, I'm in love with it so far. The honeymoon period is well and truly in effect, and touch wood, she's not done anything yet that has made me not like her. I'm sure there will be a lot of trials and tribulations down the road, but so far, I'm loving it. It's not only the actual colour spec and the interior spec of the car, but I actually really like the HSE element of it. I know that is POV spec, as a lot of people would say, but it makes this version for me feel very agricultural. There's no sunroof, which I actually really like, mainly because I didn't use the one I had in my previous car very much. And also it means I don't have to faff about with any maintenance of the roof drains. I've got no potential worries of sort of leaks or any sort of water ingress anywhere within reason. And yeah, I just like that. But the fact that it doesn't have a lot of creature comforts, one of which that is quite annoying is the lack of heated steering wheel. That did hurt when I found it didn't have that, but it's not the end of the world because it's still got enough to make this feel luxurious, yet still kind of keep you on your toes in that you're not in this ultra luxurious car. But yeah, as far as the spec goes, really like it. Now I suppose the elephant in the room in respect of this car when I bought it, and to a lot of people in the comments on the last video, was the engine. If you don't know anything about Range Rovers, particularly the L322s, the TD6 engine, which is the M57 BMW engine which they had in the X5 at the same time, is kind of pretty synonymous as being the worst engine that they offered with the L322. The engine itself is pretty reliable and it's really easy to maintain. Well, he says that like he's done loads of work on it. I've heard it's pretty easy to maintain, and that's again another part of the reason I decided to buy this one, because I thought if it's going to be a bit of a project and a bit of a car that's kind of can be sat for a few weeks, I don't want it to be hugely mechanically troublesome, and I want to be able to get my hands dirty and try fix it myself. Whereas you just can't really do that with some of the more modern ones, like the 4.4 TDV8 I had. I remember I had to change something on it. I can't remember what was wrong with it, but we put the bonnet up and we were trying to sort something out. I think it was one of the O-rings on the oil cooler lines, and it just looks so complicated. To get to the oil cooler on that, you have to take out so much, and it's just not what I wanted to deal with. So the fact that this is mechanically simpler, and hopefully the parts are more readily available because it is BMW, etc. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it shouldn't be too bad. But the engine itself, I think it gets a bit of a bad rep. If you can hear that noise, by the way, I think it's the flexi element on the turbo downpipe. It's corroded and makes a nice rattly noise, so I need to get that sorted, which I'm aiming to do myself. I'm hopefully going to take that off and replace it with either a new whole bit for the exhaust or maybe get that bit welded on. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, but when I'm sort of stationary like this and the engine's running, it makes a weird vibrating noise. You can hear it probably a little bit now, but if I put the window down... Ooh. Initially I thought it might be the air compressor, but it's not. I did quite a bit of research on it and had a look around, and it's definitely something on the exhaust that's vibrating, and I think it was that. So anyway, I digress. But yeah, the engine itself so far isn't that bad. The thing that makes these kind of get a bad rep is actually the gearbox that's twinned with it, and it is known as a bit of a slush box. It's a GM unit, and they are prone to failure, sort of around 70, 80,000 miles. But to be honest, after I did quite a bit of research, they're not hugely expensive to either refurbish or replace. And there's a bit of arguments as to how much you should service them. Some people say don't service them at all because as the gearbox has grown up with its certain oil fluid in there, as it gets older, it becomes more viscous and thicker, and it gets used to that. And if you then swap it out with fresher oil, it's not going to like that. Don't know if that's true or not, but this one was serviced about, I think, 18 months ago, so it's pretty fresh. And I'm hoping it stays alive for a bit longer. But as far as I'm aware, this hasn't been replaced yet, and I think it's done just over 131,000 miles. So it's probably going to go at some point soon-ish. Hopefully not on this trip, but we'll see. So the gearbox itself can be a bit unreliable, but as far as it goes for driving, it's actually pretty good. Like, it's smooth, it doesn't feel too bad. It is a 5-speed though, and I will say, once you get past sort of 65 miles an hour, it is a bit loud, and you know, the gear ratios aren't that good, and it is missing that sort of like motorway gear of 7th or 8th gear. With the Westminster I had, that was an 8-speed ZF, and honestly, you could be sitting at doing 70 odd miles an hour, and it's only at like 1100 RPM. It's a very, very good sort of motorway mile muncher. Yeah, and it's just a shame that you don't really get that with this as much, but it is what it is. But again, it doesn't really bother me for, you know, the odd journey that I'm going to be doing like today and the day-to-day driving. That's really not a fuss. So if that's all I've got to really contend with on this engine, that doesn't really bother me that much, if that makes any sense. Another thing that I probably would say to people with this engine is I actually quite like this from a character perspective, because I do want a more agricultural feeling Range Rover. And this engine is probably a little bit underpowered. I say a little bit, it's quite underpowered for the size of the car. And because of that, it does sound like it's working hard a lot. I live in a really rural area, although this may not look like it. I'm obviously driving towards Scotland now, but it is, especially under load when it's going up hills where I live, it does sound very loud, and the engine sounds like it's working hard. And I think I would probably say to that, if people are looking at these, it isn't like a particularly sort of like smooth, nice sounding engine. You know, it just sounds a bit rough and ready. And to us, I think this spec of car with the HSE and the TD6, because it is more agriculturally, it feels a bit Defender-ish, but more refined. Like, it's nowhere near as loud and as rattly and as uncomfortable as the Defender, but it has that kind of charm about it. And a lot of people probably wouldn't like that, but I think it's quite quirky, and I like it as a whole package. Is it an engine I would probably want in this car day to day all the time? Probably not. I think if you're going to daily something like this, which is your choice, but I probably would opt for an engine with a bit more power, just because I think you need it, and it'd be a more comfortable, sort of quiet and chilled ride. But apart from that, the whole package itself, with the engine, etc., and gearbox, I actually really like it. I think it complements this car, complements this spec, and it really complements the kind of car I've gone for and where it fits into like my life. So yeah, so far, very, very smitten with the choices I made. Anyway, I need to quickly pop to Halfords to get some of those number plate lights, because one of them's I think it's either gone out or someone's replaced it with those horrible LED ones that seem to flicker and flash. So I'm going to quickly grab some of those for, I think, £3.99 and start slowly improving this little thing and making it a little bit better, one step at a time. So yeah, bear with me while I go find a parking space for this absolute unit. That is one downside to the size of this car. Again, because it's HSE, it doesn't have a reversing camera, so not that I really need it, but it is kind of useful for tight car parks like this. Yeah, trying to park this car sometimes in, especially old car parks where the spaces aren't particularly big, is absolute chaos. This thing is huge. It sticks out. It is wide. She's a big girl. Very big. Anyway, let me park up and we'll go sort this out. And I'll come back to you in a minute. Just give you a bit more idea of what I mean. So I'm parked literally to the line in quite a big car park. And this thing just sticks out like nobody's business. I think she just about fits. Not too bad, but yeah. This one's quite a big car park, so she fits all right. But anyway, off we go to Halfords. Let's go get what we need. Right, we've got the bulbs. As suspected, someone's put those minging LEDs in. So yeah, just going to quickly take these out in the car park and yeah, refresh her up really nicely. There you go. Yeah, so if you have an L322, don't put these in. They're rubbish. They always flicker. Sometimes they disconnect. I've seen them before where someone's going over a bump, like a jolty road, and they're just shaking and flashing and flickering and all sorts. So yeah, avoid them if you can, and yeah, stick to normal halogens. You'll be a lot better off. Right, so we've got new lights. We do need to get some fuel, but weirdly, I just popped into a shop locally to get some of those, is it the Ray-Ban Meta glasses? Thought it'd be quite cool for a bit of POV slash, sounds weird. Yeah, for a bit of, well, car stuff, and also I thought they'd be quite funny for the golf trip. But anyway, even though they have them online, in stock, in store, they won't sell me them for data protection reasons. Yeah, so thanks, shop that rhymes with Pon Buis. Yeah, anyway, we move on. Right. Don't know where to get fuel now or a bit further into the journey. Got 170 odd miles, so I'll see how we go. I think I actually I treated her to some nice fuel a week or so ago. I gave her some V-Power diesel. If anyone knows if there's actually really a difference, especially with the diesel side, I've heard they put more additives. It's good for cleaning all the gunk out your engine, blah blah blah. Is it just BS? Not sure, but I feel like I'm treating her nicely, doing stuff like that on occasion. I think every couple of fill-ups, maybe 1 in 3, something like that, as well as some normal supermarket juice should do us some good. As much as I love this car, I'm not just going to run it on premium diesel all the time because, yeah, well, I'm not rich, so don't fancy doing that. Anyway, what else can I tell you about the car so far? Another good benefit to this particular car as well is because it's a 2005, the general running costs are actually not quite a bit cheaper, but a little bit cheaper. First one is tax. Tax on this, I think it's about 380, maybe 410 a year, which obviously isn't cheap by newer car standards, but I think on my Westminster that was about 785, you know, so I think next year that probably would have crept up to past 800 because it's done on an inflationary basis. So obviously the higher the tax is now, the more it will increase by, just because maths. So yeah, if you want an old car that's a bit unfriendly to the environment, then try and go one for a bit cheaper tax, because obviously as time goes by it will get more expensive, but the increase at the moment isn't as exponential as it is for the ones that are already at that 700 odd pound bracket. So that's a bit of a bonus. Fuel wise, this isn't actually as efficient, even though it's a lot smaller engine down my 4.4 TDV8. I think on long runs I got nearly 40 mpg on that, which is pretty amazing for, like I say, 4.5 litre V8 that's pulling a nearly 3 ton, about 2.8 tons, these things. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. This, it says on average it's averaged about 27. It'd be good test on this little trip to see what it gets on a long run, about 3 hours solid. I'm hoping over 30. I think that's probably quite conceivable and achievable, but we'll see. But the big one is definitely insurance. I don't know if it's just the timing of when I had my last Range Rover, but it was definitely caught up a little bit in the sort of Range Rover insurance scandal with all the kind of more modern ones being stolen, like the L405s, etc. So I think my insurance was about, I think, 1,200 quid on that. For some people that's really cheap, some people that is absolutely horrific. This one is considerably cheap. This is about, I think I put in 8 or 10,000 miles a year on this, which I will never do. That's really unlikely unless I start doing, cross Europe trips in this or something. And yeah, everything else, I also put it as mainly parked on the road because, again, one of the reasons I actually got rid of my old Range Rover is that it was just sort of surplus to requirements a little bit, and it was being just like left on the main road rather than lovingly tucked up in my garage or on my drive. So it is registered as on the road and fairly high miles, but only social, domestic and pleasure rather than commuting, so that might make a bit of a difference. But anyway, it's over half. It's about 550 quid, so yeah, about half the price of my TDVA. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Overall, again, for a car that's not as a daily, I'm not too displeased with those costs. You know how I mentioned earlier about the engine being quite loud at high speeds? I'm nearly doing 70. It's probably 2,500 RPM. There isn't another gear. So this is it for the whole way. So I think in reality, it's probably better to just maybe drop it down to like 65, something like that. Not sure. Also, one thing that is a little bit disconcerting, I can't show you because my camera's being used to film this, obviously. But when it was extremely hot about a month ago, just after I bought this, I got a little stone chip on the very bottom. You know where the sort of black seam meets the frame of the glass? And I woke up one morning after it was really hot, and that chip that was tiny, again, how unlucky to get a stone chip literally as soon as you bought the car. I remember just driving, I think it was the second day I had it, just whack, this big stone came flying off the lorry and hit this. But yeah, tiny little chip went from a crack to about this big. So yeah, right now I have quite a chunky crack in my screen. It is quite a thick piece of glass. It's obviously the windscreen, it's double laminated, and it might be even thicker because it's got a heated windscreen. But yeah, I'm currently driving with a rather large crack in my screen, and it's a disconcerting noise coming from the front when I go quite fast. I don't know if it's just like a leaf or something. I can see a little leaf in the windscreen wiper, so I'm hoping it's that flicking against the glass. But yeah, I'm quite minded to go a little bit slower. I will get it fixed. I need to get it replaced. I've just not had time. But yeah, it is quite unsightly. And as we're coming into winter as well, I kind of need to get that sorted because I really, really want my heated windscreen. I'm so glad heated windscreen comes with the HSE. That is like an absolute winner for me. Heated steering wheel, the lack of that is quite sad and annoying, but we move. Anyway, so like I said, very smitten with this car so far. It's ticking a lot of boxes for me. What do I kind of have planned for it going forward? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is, after I've done this trip, and I probably should have done it before, although the service history is good, I'm just going to give it a really thorough service myself. I think it's that age car now where it's probably not going to go up that much in value anymore. They're definitely at the bottom end. It's got a good service history, but because I want to work on it myself, I'm not too bothered about the service history being done by me and not going to a specialist. The fact it's £5,000, like, I don't really see the point in, retaining that service history to be done by an independent or main dealer. I'll do it myself. That's why I bought it. That's why I went for this engine. And yeah, because I'm working on it myself, I'll just service it myself. I'm fairly comfortable doing that. I've done it with a few other cars I've got, which you may or not have seen yet on the channel. But we're going to do that. Give it a full flush of all the fluids. So I'm going to do engine oil, coolant, diff oil. I don't know if I'm going to do the gearbox oil, just because that has been done fairly recently, but I might just do it myself. Do everything so we know exactly where we're starting from. Do all the other service alignments, cabin filter, pollen filter, spark plugs, coil packs, whatever. So we know exactly where it's starting from, and that everything that should be done has been done. Also going to sort out that weird sort of turbo exhaust noise issue, the rattle. I will try and get a video of it. It is incredibly annoying, slightly embarrassing as well when you're stationary, but when it's moving like this, it's perfectly fine. So it's not an urgent thing to do. But one of the things I really want to do with this car is, as we approach winter, other than getting the windscreen fixed so I can use the heated windscreen, is get it on some really, really nice, decent all-weather tyres. I don't know what it's on at the moment. I think it's on Avons or something. They look like they've got plenty of tread and they'll be fine, but given where I live and what I want this to be used for, I want this to absolutely nail the winter months and, you know, the slippy, muddy terrain that it's going to be dealing with. I want this to be an absolute beast. And as well as that, I actually want to take this off-roading. You know, I want to do a bit of green laning. I might do the odd off-road day with it. I want to use it for exactly what it was made for. And yeah, just give it a bit of a battering in a nice, gentle way. So that's what I've sort of got in my head going forward as to what the car's going to have done to it, what it's going to be used for. If any of you got like ideas of what you'd like to see me doing it, let me know. You know, what do you do with, other than what I've suggested, what do you do with kind of a project / weekend toy L322? Because I don't know, I have a few vague ideas, but there are a lot more people out there with better ideas and more expertise than me, so do let me know. Anyway, I feel like I'm waffling. Don't worry, this is not going to be a 3-hour long video, but I just thought, yeah, I'd use this time while I'm on my own. I'm hoping she makes it, obviously. If there's any faux pas, any issues, anything breaks, fingers crossed it doesn't, I'll obviously let you guys know. Anyway, I appreciate that was a bit of a random video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the little journey with me. If you've got any queries, questions, concerns, or anything you want to see from this car going forward, drop those in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like. And if for some reason you're not already subscribed to the channel yet, do me a favour, there's an ambulance coming, and hit that button because it really does help. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.